is Alma and welcome to my book journey. I am here today filming from a different location. So this past week I took all my books out of the living room and brought them into office here in our house. I'm still trying to organize things and I'm still trying to figure out where's the best place to record videos and things and the lighting and everything, and it's a big mess. I've tried recording this video several times and it's kind of frustrating, but anyway, I'll work it all out eventually. I think just gonna take some time getting used to new surroundings and things. So today, what I have for you today is I'm going to talk about all the books that I read the month of July, and that was my romance month. And so I had a lot of good books that I read this month or last month, and like I said, it's all pretty much, they're all romance. I even did my five yearly challenges. I decided to use the prompts and find a romance book to follow those prompts. So I'm going to go in order of not how I read them, but I'll do my five yearly challenges first, and then I'll let you know what else I read after that. But I'm going to take a drink. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is the one I read for Chantel's Reads All Day, her Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. And this was the prompt that I had to do was read a book of short stories. And so I chose Paris for One and Other Stories, and these were kind of little romance, love stories, short stories. And they were okay. They were a good fun read. The main one had to do with a young woman that was basically stood up by her boyfriend. She had planned this really nice getaway weekend to go to Paris. She lives in, they were both living in England. And then her boyfriend doesn't show up at the train station and just texts her and says, hey, just have a fun time, you know. And so the story is about her and how her anxiety gets to her, that she's going to be in Paris all by herself. She's never been anywhere by herself before. And then, of course, she meets somebody there, and what happens, you know, while she's in town for a couple days, and she gets to meet this young man, this waiter, writer, and kind of like his little story. It was maybe like 100 pages long, that first story, and then what happens with the boyfriend and everything. So it was pretty cute. I like that one. And so that was for that challenge. And then the next yearly challenge prompt was from Katie, Paperbacks and Ponytails, and hers was read a book from an author that was born in a different country than you. So I read Land of Silence by Tessa Afshar because this author was born in the Middle East. And then I also used this book for Jeanette for her Christian fiction readathon, and her prompt for July was in a hot setting. And so this story takes place in Israel, so we have a hot setting. And so this book was really good. This story was about the woman that we read about in the New Testament that had an illness for 12 years of a bleeding issue, and she reaches out to Jesus during his ministry, and she wants to be healed by him, and she's the one that approaches Jesus while he's in a crowd, and she just touches his garment, and you know, she has her faith is what heals her. And so this book, and that part of the story, or that part of her story, isn't until the very end of the book pretty much. And so the rest of the book is about, you know, kind of like a backstory, because we don't know a whole lot in the Bible about this person, just that she had that illness and that she was healed by Jesus. So Tessa Afshar gives us a fictional account of what that life would have been like for her. And so she even names her. Her name is Eliana, and that's my daughter's name. They spell it different, but it was her, Eliana, and she had a really rough start to her life. She lost a young brother that kind of set everything in motion as far as the things that happen. Even I think like the first line in the book talks about, you know, everything happened because of a bee. You know, her brother was highly allergic to bees and he was stung by a bee, and then unfortunately he did not make it. He passed away, and she felt for all of her life, really, she felt guilty and that her brother had died because she was the one that was taking care of him. And then she also had a really bad relationship with her father because her father he distanced himself from her as well and stopped being a living father, and she had that throughout her life. And then also that affected her relationships with other people in her life because of the guilt that she felt. She felt she was she was cursed, almost cursed, and she had a man that she loved and was betrothed to, and even though he kept telling her that it wasn't her fault, she still felt that shame. And so this is a really beautiful story about just forgiveness, that she was able to find forgiveness for herself when she didn't feel like she was worthy to receive it. So really, really wonderful book. I really highly recommend this one. Okay, then for Oshina's challenge, for her romance challenge, I chose to read the book Shattered because I picked the prompt of read a book in a series. And so this is book 2 in the Alaskan Courage series. And I read the first book way back in January, and I kind of enjoyed that one. It wasn't as wonderful as I thought it was going to be because so many people had been talking about it. But this one I liked a little bit better. This one had to do with another one of the family members, the sister by the name of Piper. And well, the love interests were Piper and Landon, who was the deputy. The story is about, what the story really is about her younger brother that comes back into town, and he is accused of killing a young woman in their town. And of course Landon's the deputy, so he's going to be investigating this, and Piper cannot believe that her brother would do anything like that. And so she, you know, even though she has nothing to do with the law, she is going to do her best to find out who really killed this girl, and to try to get her brother out of jail, and to prove his innocence. And so I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I enjoyed this one a lot better than the first one. And so this book, I think there's 5 maybe in the series. I have all of them, so I think I will continue on. Obviously, well, I have all of them, so I'm going to go ahead and do the best and continue on with this series. So that was good. And then my last yearly reading challenge was for Angie, Book Mama. Her prompt for July was read a book that is like being in paradise, or something about being in paradise. And so I picked this book. This is called One Italian Summer. And this one, I love the cover. It's just like paradise. And I will say that this book really did make me feel like I was in paradise. It was so good as far as the author really described the setting of where this young woman is spending some time here in Italy, this small little town, and just the different places that she went to, she saw, and then the food, how she described all the wonderful food that she had was just really good. That was my favorite part of the book, was reading the atmosphere, and the food was just really wonderful. The story was kind of, I don't know, it was really kind of bizarre to me. The story talks about it, the premise of the book is a young woman recently lost her mother of cancer, and she was super super close to her mother. They were very close. They did everything together, and she really put her mother on a pedestal. And she even says things like that her mom was like the love of her life, and which kind of, you know, said something to me, because she did have a husband, and she didn't have any children, but she did have a husband. And when her mom died, she just felt broken and lost, and she even kind of pushed her husband, distanced herself from her husband, and didn't know if she still wanted to be married. So she took this trip to Italy, and it was a trip that her and her mother had planned for many years. They wanted to go together because this was a place where the mother had been during her youth before she was married. And so she went alone. She wanted to go see all the places that her mother had been and just try to be close to her mom in that way. Well, while she was there, she runs into her mother, and her mother at a young age, and she recognizes her right away, and she knows it, and she knows that it's her mother, but we do not know why, or we do not know how this is happening, and the author does not explain what is happening, and which is fine. I thought, well, maybe the author will explain it later, but I thought it was curious that the woman didn't think anything. I mean, she just accepted that her mother was there and didn't question it or oh, what's going on? Well, am I crazy? You know, she just wanted to be next to her mom. She wanted to be around her mom. And then, so that was kind of odd that it wasn't explained. And then also another thing I didn't like about the book was, like I said, she is married and she didn't go with her husband. She didn't want her husband to go with her to Italy. And then she ends up meeting somebody there and being attracted to this person and having a relationship with this person, even though she's married. And so I didn't like that part of the book. And they did have an open door scene towards the end of the book, which, you know, just to let you know, it's not closed door. But it was really short, but still it bothered me because, like I said, she was married and she went and did that. So at the end of the book, we do have a kind of a twist. I don't know if it was a try to fix that whole thing with her cheating on her husband. I still felt, even though it changed certain things, I still thought she still cheated. To me, she still cheated on her husband. Anyway, so I didn't, like I said, it wasn't like a 5-star read for me. I did like I said, the portions I did like were her getting to know her mom and how her mom was, and so I liked that part, and I liked the whole description of the area as far as Italy. I really enjoyed that. So I guess I think I ended up rating it maybe about a 3 for a read. I mean, it was a fast read too. So it read fast, and it, like I said, it was very atmospheric as far as being, you know, in Italy, and it made me want to get on a plane. Like, yeah, I'd love to go to Italy and see the beautiful country and eat the food and drink the wine. It was just really nice. Okay. So those were the books that I read for the 5 challenges. And then I had some other books that I was able to read. And so this one is called Before and After. And this book was so good. So this one is a very sweet, clean romance between 2 people that grew up together as kids and were just like best friends. And when they were in high school, like their junior year, I think, the young woman, her father dies in an accident. And because of that, her mother moves the whole family away from out of town because, you know, she's so devastated by losing her husband. And because of that, she does not keep in touch with her best friend, which is, his name is, I can't remember offhand what his name is. But they don't see each other for 10 years. And so 10 years later, and that's where our book starts, is where she is going to visit family for Thanksgiving, and that's when this book takes place during Thanksgiving and Christmas time season. So this is a great book to read during the fall and Christmas time, just so you know. And so she runs into him after, like I said, after 10 years, and they are both waiting for their flights because of the weather. Things have been canceled, and so they, you know, get to talking, and she just realizes that, you know, she hasn't kept contact with him, and it's such a sweet time that later on in the book, he comes to her hometown, and because he travels a lot for his work, he's a photographer, and he reaches out to her and says, I'm going to be in your town for right before Christmas, maybe we can, get back in touch with each other. And so I wanted to read now I have to put my glasses on to read this, but I wanted to read a portion in here that I thought was a couple things, because, or maybe I'll just tell you, they were so close as friends, as best friends when they were in high school. And whenever he came into town, they went to have dinner, or they were eating together, and they were sitting across from each other. And she says something, she thinks in her mind, it's like, oh, I forgot to, usually I tell, when I order this particular meal, I don't add mushrooms, and I forgot to tell them to take the mushrooms off. And it's like, she went back to like what she used to do whenever she was with him. She took the mushrooms off and put them on his plate, and he had something that he didn't like, and then he put those on her plate. It was like, automatic, like they didn't even think about it, right? And then I thought that was sweet. But there was another funny part in here when they were talking, and so this is kind of like just a question for you all. It says, she write in here, it says, there are 3 types of movie watchers. So you have to figure out what type you are. There are 3 types of movie watchers: those who want absolute silence and complete focus, and then those who want to talk the whole way through with minimal attention for the screen, and those who like a balance between the two, chatter but only to make observations or ask for clarifications or exclamations of surprise and annoyance. So I read that to my son, or my husband. I'm like, right away I was like, I know my son, my son's the first one. He doesn't like when we go to the movies, there's no talking or anything. And even when we leave the theater, he's like, don't say anything until we get to the car. And then my daughter is probably the second one where they want to talk all the time. I thought that was kind of cute. Anyway, so this book is super sweet. I loved the way they came together, and what it was her when her father died, she kept that whole part of her life out of her heart because of the pain. And unfortunately, he was part of that life, right? He was part of her past, and that was the before in the book. And then her after was what she was living now. And the whole point was that she was bringing her before and her after together, and her life now, and she wanted to be able to share that with him. And so I really, really enjoyed this one. Like I said, it's a sweet romance, and this is a part 1 in a series. I do have the other book, and I do plan on reading it. And then she just came out with the 3rd book, and I'm going to get that one too, because I just want to see what happens in this story. I think the 2nd book is about her. She has a friend named Valerie, and I think the 2nd book is about her friend Valerie. So there's that one. Okay, so the next book I'm going to talk about is a book by Jenny Proctor called Absolutely Not in Love. And this one, I really love this one. I read this with my husband, and he enjoyed it too, because this book is about a hockey player. And so we really enjoyed that one because my husband loves hockey. And so that was kind of fun when they talked about the hockey. It wasn't a big part of the book, well, a little bit, but the main characters are Felix, he's the hockey player, he's the goalie, and then his neighbor is Gracie, and she is a musician. She plays the cello, and she's funny because she comes from a family of hockey fanatics, lovers, and so they just love hockey, and particularly they love his team. And she hates hockey. She hates hockey. She doesn't want to date anybody that plays hockey because of the history that she has with dating hockey players. And mostly because her family, like I said, her family were hockey fanatics. Her brother played hockey, and she like I said, she was a musician, so like for her concerts and things, they didn't seem as into going or supportive of what she did, whereas they went to all the games that her brother played. So that kind of thing kind of bothered her through the years. So she has to get past that because of circumstances that happen between, like I said, their neighbors and things that happen that bring them closer together. And she comes to realize that, you know, he's not a typical hockey player. He is a really sweet, well-read guy, and very, he's not a player or one that dates a lot of women, that kind of thing, like she thinks a lot of them are. And he also is a bookish person, because she finds out that he loves to read and he has a really nice library. He also has oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, that might be a spoiler. But the one part that I thought was kind of sweet, kind of funny, was that whenever she found out he liked to read and he was recommending books to her, he recommended a book that I read the beginning of this year. He recommended Amy Harmon's Sand and Ash. I'm like, hey, I read that book. And so I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And so this book talks about how they get past that. Really, the thing is her getting past the fact of her past, and can she get past that and really see him for who he is and not just that he's just a hockey player. And so I gave this a five-star rating, and I have another book that is part of this series, so I can't wait to read the next one. Okay, so I have a couple other books that I read that I don't have the physical copies. I have a book that is also by Amy Harmon, and that is The Outlaw, Noble Salt, and I'll put a copy up here. This was a historical fiction about kind of like a what-if story. What if the outlaw Butch Cassidy turned a new leaf and left the life of crime, and you know, what would his life been, what could have been like? And this, so we have Butch Cassidy, and he decides to quit robbing banks and robbing trains, and he just wants to live a life of just peace, basically. But it's going to be hard to do because he's a wanted man, and so he ends up leaving the country for a while, going down south to Bolivia, and then he later returns later in life, and he goes back to the States, and he's in New York, I believe, visiting his friend, and they go to a concert. And at this concert, he hears a woman sing, and her voice is so beautiful that he just falls in love with her voice. Reminds him of songs that his mother used to sing to him as a child. And he goes back and sees her sing 3 more times at her concert. Well, on the 3rd time that he's there, the woman, and her name is Jane, she's an English woman, her son is sick, and they call for a doctor. And he gets mistaken for the doctor, and he just plays along with it, and he helps the woman and her child that night to get the little boy medicine and things, which is kind of weird, but he does it, you know, he just wants to help. And she is, you can tell they have something happens, a chemistry there that both of them feel that first night as he's taking care of her child. And then after that, we flash to the future, and it's like 6 years have gone by. You know, they had gone their separate ways and everything, and 6 years later they run into each other again, and this time they are in England, and she recognizes him, and she asks him if he would be willing to come back to the States and be her security, because she's going to go back on tour like she was when she had first met him. And he agrees to go with her. And so this is a really beautiful story. I just love Amy Harmon's writing. So it's a beautiful story because we have the story not only with him, but with Jane and her life. She was an orphan that was found in England, and a wealthy person found her because she was singing, and they took her as their ward. And really the only reason they took her is not because they adopted her out of love. They didn't adopt her, but they took her. And because she had that voice, they sent her to schools to master her voice and just become the songstress that she ended up being. But she never had anybody love her. She never had anybody treat her like a daughter or a family. She was just, you know, basically she wasn't a servant, but she didn't feel loved. In other words, she just never felt loved. She did have a son, and that's her son was born, and she was married to her manager that took care of all her singing things. And her son was born with a defect on half of his face. Was I don't know if it was pigment or it was distorted in some way, but it was pretty bad because people would stare at him and, you know, think he's a monster and that kind of thing. And so she protected her son as best she could. And so that story was in of itself was a good story, and all her background and the things that she dealt with and the people that hurt her. And then his story was so good too, because he had, even though he fully says that he did bad things in his past, but he had a gentle soul, and well, at least Amy Harmon wrote him that way. And he had a brother that wanted to be, you know, an outlaw, part of his gang, and he always tried to keep his younger brother, he wanted his younger brother out of that kind of life, but his younger brother always tagged along and was there all the time. And so that the book is about them getting together, them going, and then she's got somebody trying to hurt her that he's gonna help her, and it's so good. I'm one of the kind of people that cries when I read a book, and I was crying. I'm like, why am I crying? I'm crying over these outlaws. It's like, you wouldn't think I'd be crying over, you know, bad guys, you know, because they were bad guys. But there was one part in the book that I did tear up over these bad guys. But I highly recommend that one. It was a great love story between Jane and Noble Salt, who that was his fake name that he used, you know, because he was wanted as Butch Cassidy. But it was interesting in the author's note, Amy Harmon says that, and I didn't know this, but evidently there are, you know, there's lore that maybe Butch Cassidy wasn't killed the way history says he was killed, that maybe he is out, that he got away. You know, there's stories out there that he possibly did not die the way they said. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay, the other two books that I read these when I was going to Tennessee, and I listened to these on audio, and these were books by Colleen Coble. And the first one, let's see, my notes. The first one was A Heart's Disguise and A Heart's Obsession. And these were, I can't remember how many is the whole series. We only listened to the first two. And this was set in the time frame of right after the Civil War. And it is about a young woman named Sarah and a man named Rand. And before he went off to war, they were, you know, sweethearts. And unfortunately, they got reports that he was killed in action in the Civil War. And so she, of course, she's devastated, but her father, who is getting older, says, you know, you need to, you know, start a new life and you need to get married because I'm not going to be around much longer because of my illness, and you need somebody to take care of you. So she becomes engaged to some man that she doesn't love, you know, marriage of convenience. But then, and my husband called it right away. He's like, I bet he's not dead. Right. So the guy, her sweetheart, didn't die in the war. He has been, for over the year, he has been wounded at a hospital. And of course they didn't know about it, but her fiance did know that he was alive. And I was like, oh, that guy's terrible. And so that was the first book, you know, him coming back to find her, engage somebody else, you know, what's going to happen. And then the second book picks up with their story, and it was really good. So I need to go back and find the rest of that story. I think Colleen Coble said this was like one of the first things that she wrote that at first didn't get picked up right away to be published, but then it did, and then she split it up into all these little novellas. So that is the I think that was it. I think that's the last book. Let me make sure, look at my notes. I think I got all of them. Yep. Okay, so I did really well on the Beaches and Books readathon. I did all the prompts except for one. I didn't get to one that said read a book that has royalty or a castle on the cover. That was the only one I didn't make, because I did have a book, but I just ran out of time in the month and I wasn't able to read it. So, but I got the rest of them, so I was really pleased with that. So let me know in the comments if you did the readathon, if you got all of them, or, you know, I did double up on some of them, which was legal to do, so that was helpful. So I was able to do that. But I found, like I said, I had all my books fit in to the different prompts, so that was fun. Okay, so that is it. I try not to make this video too long, and try not to I don't know, we'll see how this goes with my new room. I don't know, I was thinking about doing maybe I've seen people do bookshelf tours. I don't know if anybody would be interested in that. When I was moving my books, I was thinking about putting my books in alphabetical order, and I didn't do that. I didn't do that because it was just so much. It was just enough just to get them to another room and things. So, but at least I have them somewhat. I've put most of my, I think all of my Christian fiction are in this bookshelf over here, and then this right here is all my secular books, and then I have my little short one is over there that has all my World War II and more historical fiction things. And so yeah, I'm pretty full, so I'm not gonna, so that is helpful to me. So it's like, I know I'm full, I don't need to go buy any more books, but you know what, that's probably not gonna deter me, because I love, you know, going to my library sales and things. Although there was one today and I didn't do it, I didn't go. So hey, I was very proud of myself that I didn't go, because I know I would have brought more books. Okay, enough rambling. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and let me know in the comments below what were your favorite books of the month of July, and if you did participate in the Beaches and Books readathon and any of the yearly challenges. Let me know, and if you read any of these books, let me know if you enjoyed them or what you thought, and we'll see you later. You all have a blessed day. Bye-bye.